welcome to the Preacher Girl video podcast, video blog. I am in my living room today, and that's why I don't know why I'm so cold today. The heat is on, and it's nice and cozy, but my legs are freezing. So that's why I have this blanket. And yesterday was Valentine's Day, so I thought it was a great time to talk to you about a really interesting topic. So has God picked the one for everyone? Is there somebody on the planet that God assigned you to marry that is just for you? And if so, how do you find that person? What to look for in your spouse? So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you're an unmarried preacher girl, you're going to love this because it's going to give you all the insight that you need before you say I do to make sure that you don't end up in a relationship that you're trying to get out of for the rest of your life. If you're a married preacher girl, it's also going to help you because it's going to help you, one, realize what you can do to fix things that may be wrong. Two, be very grateful for what you already have. Three, see where you went right, went wrong, and how you can teach your girls, your daughters, how to make great choices. So if you're ready for that, let's stay tuned to find out what are the 6 best things to look for in your future spouse. If you're like me, then almost every time you fell in love, which is the term that teenagers use, or used to use anyway, I think now they're just going out, but I don't know. But every time you had a relationship with someone, you thought for sure, this is the person that you're gonna marry. And even though they don't admit it anymore, lots of girls spend a lot of time thinking about what it would be like to be married to the person that they're dating, or to have all the things. And by things, we are talking about a home of your own, maybe a family, maybe bills. Isn't it crazy how when you're young, bills are glamorous and like jobs and things like that? The same stuff that we don't want anymore. When you're young, those things you can't wait to get out and have a mortgage or have rent to pay or have to catch the subway every morning to get to work. And then you grow up and you're like, not what I had in mind. Well, marriage is sort of like that. And when you're young, you think it's going to be all perfect and blissful, and it's just going to be somebody that you get to sleep next to every single day. You'll never have to sleep in a bed alone by yourself, and when you fall, they'll pick you up, and when you're sad, they'll come and say, why art thou sad, or things like that. Or maybe not art thou, but they'll be like, are you okay, and sincerely care. So we have all kinds of notions of grandeur based on movies that we saw as kids, right? Every girl wants some Prince Charming to come along and kiss her awake from the sleep of death or something like that. And then you grow up to realize it's not really that way after all. Marriage is hard work. And not only that, it takes 2 to have a great marriage, not just one. And it's very difficult. It becomes so difficult. I counsel a lot of couples who are in so much trouble because one person is trying and the other may not, or both of them are trying, but trying in different directions without resolve. So I want to make sure that before you say I do, that you're looking for the right things, because we're good at looking. We know how to look. Some of you have a list of 10 things that you are looking for in your spouse, but are they the right things? So the very first thing I want to tell you about that you want to look for in a spouse, in your husband to be, is someone who can handle conflict well. What? That's so weird, but it's true. Not just someone who can handle conflict well, but someone with whom you can handle conflict well. So we had this couple that came into the office one day for counseling, and they started it off like this. We never fight. We never argue. We've dated for 3 years and we never fight. If we start a fight, I will just realize that I've done wrong, or he will just apologize quickly. He's quick to say sorry, Pastor. I know he's perfect because he's so quick to say so. And immediately all my red flags went up, because conflict is the only way that you get to really realize what a person is made of. You see, when you're in the dating phase, when you're in that infatuation season of your relationship, when you're just boyfriend and girlfriend, or when you're just interested in each other, conflict helps you see what's really in a person's heart and their mind. And when you're looking for a Christian spouse, a Christian husband, you look at the way they handle things when they're angry, especially if they're angry with you. If the two of you are in a fight and you don't talk for days, and eventually you just pretend like it didn't happen, there's no resolve for this, there's no apology, there's no, let's reason together, let's talk about this. But instead, there is venom, there's bitterness, there's the silent treatment, there's psychological oppression, there's narcissism, there's, a feeling like they think they're right even if they're just making peace. Then that's a guaranteed sign that this is going to bring trouble in the marriage. If it's that way before, if the two of you do not resolve conflicts well in the dating phase, you're not going to be able to resolve conflicts well in the marriage. You see, when you're dating, everybody puts on their best face. Even if you're thinking right now, well, I didn't see a best face, just imagine how bad that's going to be afterwards. Everybody puts on their dating face, and that's where you present the best part of yourself in order to get that person to eventually say, I do. Even if you don't know that's what you're doing, psychologically, you want them to like you. So when conflict happens, you're more willing to take the high road and be sorry. Or you're so afraid of losing this person, since there's no commitment and no covenant, that you will just absolve your position or be okay with being wrong. There are some people that even have a worse version of this, which is not just they can't resolve conflict together, but they're like, the makeup is worth the fight. Garbage. That's not true. What you are actually doing is pushing a problem aside and using a physical relationship to cover up. It's like putting a tiny bandage on a broken leg. It does not work. So if you're in a relationship right now with someone who flies off the handle, who pouts, who walks off on you and won't call you for days, who you always have to be the one that initiates the conversation after the fight, who is terrible at relationships, other relationships with people at work or in their own families where they can't handle anger issues, those are all red flags about what a marriage with that person is going to be like. And if you always have to be the mediator before your marriage, that's going to be okay. But when you're in it, it's going to become very difficult for you. Further, if you're in a relationship with somebody, and you're not married, but that person has a controlling spirit. That person always has to be right. That person doesn't give you the opportunity to have an equal voice in the relationship. Those things that are easy now will turn out to be very difficult things in your future. And the Bible shows us so many examples of this. I preached recently about Abraham and Sarah. But Sarah doesn't say much. For 16 chapters of the book, we don't hear from Sarah. We hear about her. We hear about Abraham moving and her being obliged and, just doing what her husband's doing. But then suddenly when she speaks, she has an awful idea. She decides that she's going to let Hagar, her servant, sleep with her husband in order to give her a child. And then she has another awful idea. She is just awful idea one after the other. And sometimes in our relationships before marriage, this is excusable. We're okay with that. We talk about them being passionate, or they're just so feisty. Those are the same things that turn into irresolvable conflicts in marriage. And so that's the first thing you want to look for when you're choosing a spouse. Ask yourself really honestly, how do they handle conflict? Second thing, when you're getting ready to find someone to date or someone to marry, compare your character, not your culture. And I wish that more young people, more young ladies especially, would just think about this more. One girl came up to me at one point in our ministry, and she said to me, "Oh my gosh, can you believe that we both like pineapple on our pizza?" Like match made in heaven, What are the chances? Okay, first of all, millions of people like that. Many people don't, but it's not that rare of a thing. Problems happen when we start comparing our culture. That means I like something, he likes something, we're compatible. Or, oh my gosh, I love to ski, he loves to ski. You can't compare culture and expect that a marriage will last when character is what is going to make a relationship really, really work. you have to come to the place in your relationship when you decide what are the most intrinsically important things to me. What are my priorities? Is church or Christ or the kingdom of God or money or whatever it is your character is based on. And I'm not just talking about stuff or likes or dislikes. I'm talking about the parts of you that make you you. Is this the kind of person that you are dating? You've heard the phrase opposites attract, right? And that's not exactly true unless you're a magnet, which you're not. You're a person, okay? Opposites do not attract. The reason why you're sometimes drawn to people that are unlike you is because you don't like you. And if you're say perhaps very shy and timid, you might be drawn to somebody who's very loud and bold and brave because you feel they somehow compensate for the things that you have in weakness. Or if you are a very preserved or sheltered young person, like, preachers' kids have a reputation for going wild in college because their parents don't let them do anything. You know why that is? Because they compensate for the lack of freedom by just going crazy when they grow older. So in marriage and in relationships, opposites don't really attract per se. You just look for something very different from the things you don't like in yourself, and somehow that ends up being somebody that's very that seems to be opposite of you. Oh, I'm quiet, he's loud. I'm friendly, he's private. Maybe not unfriendly, just private. I'm hardworking, he's lazy, or whatever it is. And so that's what I'm telling you. Before you choose to say I do, or before you even start dating somebody, compare your characters. Are the things that are important to me important to him? And I'm not talking about having a good work ethic. It's really discouraging when a couple comes in and they're on a very dangerous place in their marriage for really easy things. There are some couples that I counsel that think they have super serious problems, but the fact is they just see money management differently, right? They just have different values when it comes to the way money should be spent, saved, given, and kept. And it turns into something so big that it could eventually cause a breakup in their marriage. And so if before the marriage they had that conversation and she had really seen that, wait a minute, he's the kind of guy who spends impulsively, or he realized, wait a minute, she's the kind of girl who she just wants to save everything, then the conflict in the marriage would not have happened. If your character is about truth and kindness and the fruit of the Spirit and seeking hard after God, then find someone with those same aspects of character. If you're somebody that holds very highly good manners and things like that, then you marry someone that farts all the time, you're going to get offended. There may not be anything wrong with that. It's just that if that is offensive to your character, what does not offend you before you're married? Did she just say farts all the time? Yes, I did. What doesn't offend you before you're married will offend you afterwards. If you're an impatient person and you get involved with somebody who is childlike, which just means that they don't change easily, you're going to run out of patience in the marriage. So definitely compare your characters. Right? Compare your characters, not your culture. You may both like to dance, right? But your type of dance or what you see as dancing in church as compared to what he sees as dancing, maybe two very different aspects of character. That's why culture is way less important than character. You could have completely different cultures, but have the same values in your character, and that's going to make you last. That way you'll celebrate each other's culture. You'll be able to celebrate likes and dislikes because your character is the same. If two people have low character, or if two people have ungodly character, you'll probably have a better chance at surviving than someone with godly culture trying to get along with someone with ungodly character. Number 3, girls, if I can give you one piece of advice, and it's going to sound so Bible-y and churchy. You're not going to like it, but I'm telling you anyway. So one day when you're in this position, you'll be able to say, she told me and she was right. Marry someone who knows how to pray. I can't even, this is not even about, someone who can shanda and handa and do all, it doesn't matter with all that. Do not marry a man who cannot pray. It will haunt you. I have counseled more women who are in so much hurt and trouble and problems because they did not marry a man who knows how to pray. And let me tell you something. I'm not talking about the guy who can take a microphone and use the big words in church. That's not praying. Most of the times that's performing. I'm talking about a man who knows how to get on his face before God and cry out to God on his own without you having to be the woman getting up every day and saying, honey, will you please pray with the children? Or maybe we can do some family devotion. You need to find a guy who knows how to pray. 9 out of 10 couples that I see, the woman is the one who is the prayer in the family. And the man is the one who says, she takes care of that part of it. She spiritually guides the family. But I thank God that there are so many healthy marriages. I do know, because the men know how to talk to God. Prayer is not just about grocery listing God, but it's about hearing from God. When a man knows how to pray, he not only knows how to talk to God, but God talks to him. You get that? God talks to him. Find a guy, if you're dating, if you're getting ready to marry someone, if he doesn't know how to pray, don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to end up in a world of hurt and a world of trouble. Did you know that when Rebecca couldn't have babies, the Bible said that Isaac entreated the Lord on her behalf and then she became pregnant? Isn't that something? I think that it just speaks volumes when he was the one who prayed for her. That's crazy. I remember his father told his mom, Abraham told Sarah, am I God? Can I give you I can't decide if you're going to have children. But Isaac's approach in that area, even though he was so much like his dad, was so different. The Bible said he prayed for her. And I'm telling you, to have a husband who will pray for you, nothing matches that. Nothing matches that. Sometimes I talk about how many shoes I have, and you guys know it and you've seen it. And I've bought myself one pair of great shoes in my life, really great shoes, but I have a lot. And I really truly believe that a big portion of where God has taken my ministry is because I have a husband who prays. He knows how to pray. He prays a long time every single day. But very early on in our marriage, he began praying for my feet. And he's so funny because he's a podiatrist now, right? Which I don't even know if that's connected, but I'm sure it is. In the spirit, there's a big connection there. But he started praying for my feet and say, Lord, keep these feet beautiful. And how beautiful on the mountains are the feet of them who bring good news. And my occupation really attracts a lot of negative attention. People are like, you're not supposed to be a pastor. You're a female. I still get that, by the way, all the time. But when the head of your household will pray over your own feet, acknowledging the fact that God called you to bring good news, that to me, that is more powerful than any negative thing anyone can say. But what if he wasn't a praying man? What if he wasn't the kind of person who can pray on his own without me having to try to convince him? Let me tell you something. When a man knows how to pray, ladies, if you marry someone who knows how to pray, then you are sure that God can convict him, that God could not only convict him of sin and keep you safe as a result of it, but God can protect him, that God will watch over your family because the head of the household has God at his head. You can be sure that a praying man is also prioritizing his relationship with God, with Jesus. And I'm telling you, as long as he loves God first, then you're next. That's just the way. If the closer he gets to God, the closer he gets to you. And I don't know if I could just go back and shake every young lady and say, look, if he can't pray, don't marry him, to let him learn first. Make sure he falls in love with Jesus. Make sure if you don't hear him saying things like, I just felt the Holy Spirit saying to me, then ask yourself, is he really even saved? His conversation with you should include, yesterday while I was praying, I heard the Lord say. That doesn't mean he's perfect. And I'm not saying that's the only sign that he can't fake that. I'm just telling you, you want to marry somebody who has that kind of walk with God, because then you'll know in your future the relationship he has with Christ is going to ensure that your relationship will last, that he will always lead your family in the right direction, and that he hears from God. Right? Because not only do I want to be a friend of God, I want my husband to be a friend of God. I want God to call him friend, don't you? So don't think you can turn him into a friend of God. You can't even make him like your friends, right? So make sure you marry a friend of God, right? So I hope that made sense to you, because it makes a lot of sense to me. Number 4, marry someone who's humble. Or actually don't even date someone who's not humble. And you wouldn't date someone you're not planning to marry anyway. While you're dating, you spend a lot of time trying to go along with the person that you're having a relationship with. So for instance, if they think they're perfect, you feed into that. You will sometimes make them feel extra special or try to be that person that they're expecting. I've seen a lot of girls do that. When they're in that dating phase, they get into the hobbies that guy likes. If he's into bowling or cars or swimming or whatever, they pretend like they're also in that. Sometimes they actually start liking it as well. Those things are fine. But if you're dating somebody who thinks they're perfect, then even when you get into the marriage phase of your life, when you enter into that commitment and that covenant, it's going to be hard for them to ever accept that maybe they need to change. Don't ever think that that person will be willing to change with you. And in marriage, everybody's growing. We don't know all the things that we're going to be involved in. We don't know the challenges that are going to come our way. And if the person you are married to is unwilling to change because they're already perfect, you're going to be very hurt. You're going to spend a lot of time trying to see what's wrong with you. And eventually, in women, that becomes resentment, that becomes bitterness, and then you start pushing away and shutting down instead of trying to support one another, because you realize he's never going to change, or he is just thinking that you're the one who's in the wrong. But the fact is, even before you were married, you would have seen the signs of and I'm not saying they're narcissists, I'm not saying they're prideful or whatever, but humility is the most important trait. Let me tell you my most important reason for that. The Bible says that God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. So you don't want to marry someone that's in resistance to God, or that God is resisting. Think about it. Because you can resist me and it's okay, but you resist God, you're not going to win. You're going to marry a loser from the get-go if you marry someone who's so full of themselves, who's always right, who's practically perfect. You're going to guess who's always going to be lacking? You. Your inferiority complex is going to get bigger. Your insecurities are just going to grow. You don't want to enter into a relationship that fosters that kind of mental heartache for you, and in the other way, not only causes you to be even more broken than you were when you started, but there is no change in the future. There is no potential for this marriage to become stronger because that person has already arrived. So if you're looking for somebody, if right now you're saying, God, bring that man into my life, if you want to start dating somebody, ask yourself honestly, is this a humble person? You can be brilliant and humble. It's completely possible to be both. There's, to me, no better combination than someone who's brilliant and humble. You can be humble without being self-deprecating. You can be humble without being a pushover. You can be humble, and humble just means that you're willing to say, you know what, I was wrong, or I can be corrected, or maybe I should try it your way once. I'm telling you, that goes such a long way when you're in a marriage for life. Number 5, not everybody's going to agree with my 6, okay? But these are my 6. After 26 almost 26 years of marriage, these are the things that are important to me, or I would have liked to have been told before I got married. When you look for somebody, these are the things you want to look for. Marry a giver. Marry a giver. Girls, listen to this, pastor. Marry a giver, not a taker. There are two kinds of people in the world, a giver and a taker. And even though everybody has to be some of both, you want to marry someone who is more a giver than a taker. On a very basic level, it's more blessed to give than to receive. But this is what I've seen. If you marry a taker, if a giver marries a taker, then what you give in the marriage is going to be cut in half. But if a giver marries a giver, what you give in the marriage is going to be multiplied. So in other words, if you are a giving person, if you have the gift of giving, and when you get married, you say you give 100% when you're unmarried. When you get married to a taker, then you are going to give at 50%, because this marriage now involves two people, and what potentially you could have given is going to be cut in half. There'll always be confusion. There'll always be an argument. You'll always suffer for what you hear the Holy Spirit saying, but you can't fulfill that. When you marry a giver, though, can you imagine when two giving people get into the same relationship and the two become one? Whatever you would have given is now at least doubled, but most of the time tripled and quadrupled. And what you can affect the kingdom with is magnificent. God can do mighty, amazing, wonderful things when two givers meet in the middle. And by giving, I don't only mean money into the kingdom, but I mean everything. Think about it. When people, and you see this, the way your boyfriend or your fiance or your girlfriend tips the waiter is such a telling sign. The way they act when a missionary comes to your church, the way they support a cause, the way they are kind to those who are in need, all of those things tell volumes about how they give, if they're givers or takers. But emotionally, are they givers or are they takers? Think about it. Are they willing to meet you when you're down and say, is there something I can do for you today? Let me show you one easy way to spot a giver and a taker, or maybe this is how you recognize if you are a giver or a taker. Let's say he's on the way to meet you at a restaurant, and you're sitting there by yourself, and he gets into a fender bender, and he calls you and he says, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I just got into a fender bender. No, I'm okay. Everything's okay. It's just I'm not going to be able to meet you." You know what a giver would say? You know what, I'm just glad you're all right. Is there anything I can do for you? That's what she would say to him. But if you're a taker, you would say, so am I just supposed to stay here by myself, looking like a fool? Is the car drivable? Can you still make it? Should I wait or should I go? Everybody's looking at, you see how takers are? Takers just make everything about themselves. They can take every situation and turn it into how it's affecting them. And if you marry a taker like that, you're going to get exhausted. Eventually, not only is your love going to run out, your patience is going to run out, your strength and energy is going to run out. You're going to feel like you're pouring into a marriage that's giving you nothing back. And that's why I'm telling you, the point at which to make those decisions are at the beginning of a relationship, not in the middle, and certainly not after you walk down the aisle. When you're dating somebody, you can tell immediately, are they a giver or are they a taker? How do they act with the people with whom they worship? When there's a youth group meeting, are they the helpers or are they the sit down and watchers? You can tell the givers from the takers, even in those kinds of social situations. Watch, girls, just pay attention. I promise you, it's going to save you a whole lot of time, a whole lot of tears, and a whole lot of heartache if you just pick the right person before. Number 6, and the last one I have today. These are maybe not the best things to look for. These are just some of the things maybe we oversee. We kind of forget about them until it's too late, and then they jump up and bite us in the butt or whatever. These are things that we probably should pay more attention to before and end up resenting later. And my number 6 is a simple one, but it's such an important one. don't date someone who has no manners. I mean, that's so big, especially in this generation that we live. Ladies, if he doesn't know how to treat you like a lady, if he does not respect his elders, if he doesn't know how to say good morning, to give up his seat for a lady in the church, in the bus, if he doesn't honor his own parents, then he's not going to honor you. And not just his parents, but the people in authority over him, the one in spiritual authority over him. When you want to date a young man who doesn't pretend when he needs to impress somebody, but this is just his way all the time. And by manners, it doesn't just mean please and thank you, yes ma'am and no ma'am. Does he have a sense of humor? And that doesn't mean it's crass, it's wicked, or it's ungodly. But will he laugh at your jokes too? Girls, I promise you one day it's going to matter. That you guys can have conversation, that he values the way and the things that you say and not just the way that you look. That he likes you not only when you're doing things he likes, but that he is falling in love with the person you are, with your heart, with your character, with your mind, with your spirit, and most definitely not just with your face and your body. Look for someone who is not easily swayed by the public's opinion, who has the ability to form their own opinions based on the word of God. And all of these play into manners. All of these. They're young men with good manners are not a dead species. They're still there. They're still there because there's still women like you and like me who teach our sons and teach our nephews and teach the boys in our church how to treat young ladies with respect and with honor. Please don't ever marry anyone who embarrasses you, who makes you feel like meat, even though some girls I think today like to feel that way and they like to be treated like all they are is a fine body. But girls, you know what the Bible says? That stuff doesn't last forever. At 46 years old, I can testify to the fact that the same things that you thought were enough to get you the man long ago will not last forever. There has to be more to you, more in your character, a godly spirit. And if you find a guy whose heart is after God's heart, he'll see those things. That way when your hair starts getting gray and stuff starts gravitating southward and everything that was supposed to be big turns small and everything that was supposed to be small turns big. When all of those things happen, he'll still remember and he'll still know that the things that he fell in love with are still there. Right? Okay, so those are the 6 things that I think as young ladies, as unmarried women, because I know I've got PGs that are unmarried of all ages, look for those things. I know your mom might have told you, look for a man who has a job, which is also important, but it's not one of my top 6. Or look for a man who, you're attracted to and had chemistry with. All those things are good, but they're not that good. They're not important. These are the things that I've seen people come time after time into my office having problems with because they bumped into them after I do. So I hope this helped somebody. I hope it was interesting. If you have any questions, I wish we had time for questions and answers and stuff like that. Write it in the comments below. If this helped you in any way, subscribe to this channel if you didn't do that yet. Leave me a comment. Let me know if this helped you. And if you like this kind of stuff, we can do some more of it. And this was for the women because this is Preacher Girl, but I'm sure all of these things apply in the opposite way as well. So I love you guys so much, and I will see you again next week on PGTV. Be sure to subscribe and go check us out on Instagram. There's a ton of great stuff happening at Preacher Girl TV on Instagram. Then remember that if God called you, then no one can uncall you. Bye. Done.